Day, Chapter 9, Recovering a Sense of Compassion. And I'm recording this week's video while I'm driving my truck. This is a first. I actually went to the yard super early this morning with the intention of recording this week's video before I went on duty, but I discovered that I forgot my prescription sunglasses at home, so I had to turn around, go back home, and then when I finally got back to the yard and back to my truck, it was time to head over to the docks and get loaded. And I have a lot that I want to share today, with it being International Soul Art Day, and because we're in week 9 of the Artist's Way, so I'm anticipating this video is going to be longer than some of the others because there's so much I want to cover with you. So to sort of kill two birds with one stone, I decided to record this video while I'm driving. So what is International Soul Art Day, you might be wondering? Well, it is an unofficial holiday that was created a few years ago by Laura Hollick, a Canadian artist who lives up in Hamilton, Ontario. If you're not familiar with Laura Hollick or her work, Google her, check her out, go to her website. She is amazing. She's so brilliant, so creative, so inspiring. She is often the centerpiece of her creations. She works with a lot of different mediums. She's also a painter like me, but she plays with textiles, fabrics. She works with other creatives that help create these elaborate, beautiful costumes of hers, and her partner is a photographer, and he captures the most beautiful photographs of her in these amazing, beautiful, inspired costumes in breathtaking scenery. I've been following her journey for years, and I'm just constantly blown away and inspired by what she creates. So anyways, Laura created International Soul Art Day a few years ago as a day for us as well, I think it is our natural human nature that we are creatives. And she created this day as a day for us to, whether we can literally come together in community, or like me, I'm alone in my truck, but I'm connecting with you guys through the interwebs. It's a day for us to honor our creativity and come together in creative community, and remember that our nature is that we are artists. We are the artists of our lives, and our souls want to express through us as us in creative ways in everything that we do, whether it's birthing children, birthing projects, birthing the life that we are co-creating with spirit. So this year, for some reason, I am so excited about International Soul Art Day on a level, on a frequency that I have not been in years past. I've always been aware of it, and I've done something small to honor it, but this year it's just really resonating with me, so I'm super excited to talk about it. And in honor of Soul Art Day, because I'm working all day today, it'll probably be a 12 to 14 hour shift, as it typically is this time of year, I'm wearing my Creativity Angel. This was handmade and gifted to me by friend and fellow artist Callista Litch Law, and it usually hangs in my art studio over my altar, where I have other mementos that represent my spiritual journey and my creative journey, which for me are really one and the same. So my little angel usually hangs out in the mirror, but today, in honor of Soul Art Day, she's going to be hanging around my neck all day, reminding me that even when I'm driving an 18-wheeler, I am still an artist. Alright, so that's International Soul Art Day. But really, I'm here to talk to you about The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. If you've been following, you know I started it late summer, early fall, and then took a break for a few months because of holidays, and just life got crazy busy, and I recently picked it back up. And this week, I read chapter 9. It is on recovering a sense of compassion. And pretty much like every chapter in The Artist Way, it builds on the previous chapters, and we go deeper. And this week in chapter 9, we're going even deeper in healing our past creative wounds, as well as, cultivating the courage to keep moving forward and taking creative risks again. And so I talked about that last week. But in this week's chapter, Julia goes deeper, and she talks about creative U-turns. And she says when we have a creative U-turn, it's when we've essentially had a failure, so to speak, where or maybe it's not even a full-on failure. Maybe we didn't follow through on something. An opportunity presented itself and we didn't follow through, and often that's due to fear, because we're afraid. We're afraid of failure. We're afraid of judgment. We have a lot of fears, and this book helps us work through them. This book is basically about breaking through your creative blocks, and essentially our creative blocks are the things that we're afraid of. And so she gives different examples of other artists' creative U-turns when an opportunity presented themselves and they got skittish and they ran the other way and they didn't say yes to an opportunity. They made excuses. They dropped the ball. And so after reading this chapter a few days ago, I've had some time to reflect on what have been my creative U-turns, and I thought of two significant ones that I want to share with you today. And interestingly, I think it's so serendipitous, the timing, that my creative U-turns on my creative and spiritual journey tie into International Soul Art Day for me. It's why this day for me, when tens of thousands of us around the world are coming together today, we're connecting through social media, we're sharing what we're working on, we are birthing projects today, and it's not lost on me that me creating these videos, this is another form of my creative expression. Making these videos and sharing them with the world, like I create my paintings and I share my paintings with the world. It's one more thing that comes through me and that I offer up to the world. You can take it or leave it. So creative U-turns and why Soul Art Day is so significant to me. So my first major creative U-turn it occurred over the course of a decade, basically, that I was very creative in my youth, and I took art classes and sewing classes all through high school. It was a finalist in a fashion design contest my senior year of high school. It was me and 3 other high school students. The rest of the participants were either in college. The final judging took place at Eastern Michigan University, and some of the participants were already college graduates and actually working in New York in the fashion industry. So it was a rather, it was a big project, and I was a finalist, and I got to take my creation, and so anyways, I was very creative as a young person, and I wanted to work in a creative field. But I also, throughout my lifetime, got a lot of messages, both unspoken and spoken, that art is a nice hobby, but you can't make a living at it. And some of those messages came from my mother, who had an associate's degree in fine art and was working on her bachelor's degree in fine art when, surprise, baby Marcella showed up. And so my mom put school on hold and was a single mom for many years, trying to raise me and support us financially as a single mother. And I saw her struggling to make art and to honor her creativity, and I saw her struggling to pay the bills. And so I was never told directly, you can't be a successful artist. I saw my mom's own struggle, and as I was approaching graduation in high school, I wanted to go to beauty school, and I wanted to be a hairdresser or a makeup artist. bachelor's degree. She didn't care what it was in, but she really felt strongly that I needed a college education to ensure financial stability, and for her that was more important than creative fulfillment. So I graduate from high school where I had been prolifically creative, drawing, painting, sewing, designing my own clothes, entering and being a finalist at a fashion design competition, and that was the world I wanted to work in, but I was not encouraged to follow those creative paths. So I went on to university, and I struggled for years. It wasn't until I was actually a senior in college that I finally declared a major, and sort of by default I picked English because that's what I was getting the best grades in and what was going to enable me to graduate sooner rather than later, because I kept taking writing, composition, and literature classes because I enjoy them. I love reading, I love writing, and I was getting the best grades. If I didn't follow a creative path, I didn't know what else to do. I felt really lost, and anyways, I had to pick a major, and I picked English just so I could finally freaking graduate. But then I spent the next 10 years being totally just continuing to be lost and feeling really creatively unfulfilled. I worked in advertising and marketing for almost 10 years, and I really did not enjoy that field because, as Julia talks about often in The Artist Way, a lot of us Black artists, we tend to work sort of in the fringes of creativity, and when I was working in advertising, I was working on the account management side. I was interfacing between my creative team and my clients, and it was not what I wanted to do. I was really unhappy during that period of my life, and that unhappiness led to a dark night of the soul. I had a breakdown that led to a breakthrough. But before that happened, I was so depressed. I was suicidal, and thankfully I got help, and thankfully that help included art therapy, and that was a turning point for me. That was about 16 years ago. I did the math today. I was trying to figure out when that was. I was in my late 20s, and I'm 44 now. And it was in my late 20s when I finally began to realize in those art therapy classes that I was working through everything, that I somehow needed to incorporate creativity into my life in order for me to continue to have a life, to have the will to live this life and to face the challenges that life brings us. Without art, for me, literally, life is not worth living. Art is how I now process life. I shared recently on Facebook that I read this great article about Picasso in the current issue of National Geographic, and there's a quote by his granddaughter. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but to paraphrase, she talked about how his artwork, Picasso's artwork, were his visual diaries, and that just so resonated with me because that is my artwork. When I am going through experiences, whether it's grieving my father's death, recently, processing my brother's near-death experience, when I can't find words, I paint my feelings. Pretty much all of my paintings, it is an expression of my soul. It is an expression of my emotions, that there are no words to describe what I'm feeling, but I have to get it out of my body or I feel like I'm going to drown in those emotions. They will overtake me and take me down. So that was one of my first major creative U-turns, was being creative as youth, especially in high school, but then surrendering to outside pressure to not follow a creative path, and suffering the consequences of that, of it leading to life-threatening depression, and finally, thankfully, in my late 20s, coming to the realization that I need to make art and creative expression a part of my life one way or another. And so for the last 16 years, that has been my journey, finding the balance between supporting myself financially and honoring myself creatively through creative expression and connecting with others through art and the art making process. That's been my journey and my struggle, finding that balance. So that was my first major creative U-turn. And then another one was more recent. It preceded me going into trucking. So if you followed me when I was doing the Artist Way about 4 or 5 years ago, it was midway that I started recording YouTube videos that actually created my YouTube channel. And it was the middle of doing the Artist Way over the course of 12 months. And towards the end of that year, it was October, it was around my birthday, around my 40th birthday, I quit my day job and decided to see what I could do if I pursued art full time. And I did that for 9 months. I had sort of a 9-month creative sabbatical of just giving my art, I usually paint and write, those are my two main creative expressions, everything that I had to see what I could do, to see if I could actually hack it as a full-time working artist. And I had some amazing experiences in that time period. I had some wonderful successes. I also had some failures. I sold some work. I created a whole new series, and some of it was well received, but long story short, I wasn't making enough money yet consistently to support myself financially. What really threw a wrench in the whole thing was my husband was let go from his job, and that's when he completely changed careers and he went into trucking first. And I will never forget the day he came home from talking to a recruiter in trucking, and he came home and he asked me if I would ever consider getting my commercial driver's license as well. He was like, we can team, and supposedly the money's really good. But just the day before, I had been offered a job working full-time at a small art museum, and I had accepted the job. And I felt like, wow, trucking would be quite a departure from what I've been doing for the past few years. So initially I didn't go into trucking. I took the gallery job, and that's my second creative U-turn, because that job did not work out. It was a small museum, a nonprofit. They had a very small budget, and I was working actually more hours than I work in trucking, and that's hard to believe because I work 60 to 65 hours a week. I was doing 70 plus hours a week for this nonprofit, making a nonprofit salary, no benefits, and I could deal with all of that. The hardest part was the creative differences between myself and the exhibitions coordinator and the museum curator. We had very, very, very different ideas about how to manage the artists that we represented, that I had day-to-day contact with, and how to manage the gift gallery, which I was also one of my primary duties. And so after 6 months, I gave them my resignation, and I was willing to stick around until they found my replacement. But a couple days after I had given them my resignation, they relieved me of my duties and paid me severance for a couple of weeks. But it was a nonprofit, and so I didn't qualify for unemployment benefits. And that whole experience was really detrimental to me, all of it, because my husband's job loss was very sudden, and we really weren't in a position financially to support ourselves through his period of unemployment and then changing careers, going to truck driving school. So really, I took that job not because I wanted to, but because I needed some steady income coming in. I couldn't rely on my painting sales. And so I moved into this period of a lot of sadness and disappointment and anger tied up with those events, as well as just the fatigue of the hours I was putting in at the museum, I was really burnt out. I had nothing left of myself just for my own art making. And when the finances, when our savings dried up, and I was at choice, and I chose to go to truck driving school and get my CDL, and my husband and I did team for a little bit more than a year. I went through almost 3 years of not really doing a whole lot creatively, especially those 13 months that we were driving long haul over the road, going out for 30-day runs and then coming home for 5 days. I had 5 days to rest and recharge and go grocery shopping and buy a month's worth of food to store on the truck, do a month's worth of laundry. I had nothing left of myself, no time, no energy to create. So that was my second creative U-turn, and what finally turned that around is kind of a strange experience. I've mentioned this a little bit recently on Facebook around Mother's Day, that while we were over the road, I discovered I had a tumor growing in the walls of my uterus, and so I had to come home and have a surgical procedure. I had a partial hysterectomy. And while I both grieved that on the one hand, because I really wanted to be a mother, on the other hand, it was a blessing in disguise, because it brought me home. It helped me find this awesome local driving job where I am now making more money than I've ever made in my life so far. And I'm home every night, and I'm off every Saturday and Sunday, and I get to take art classes like I recently did with Pam Fortner, learning some different paint pouring techniques, and I'm taking another art class this coming Saturday. And so those are my two major creative U-turns. That time period when I graduated from high school and stopped making art and tried to follow a more traditional path, and was really unhappy for about a decade. And then when I tried to go at it full time, being a full time working artist, and it didn't work out. It wasn't the right time. And especially after feeling like my stint working at the museum, when I felt like I had failed at that was all part of that. It was like failure, boom, another failure. So I've really spent the last couple of years of healing those creative wounds. Getting to a place where I can acknowledge them, see them for what they are, see the lessons in them, actually be grateful for them, because I wouldn't be where I am today as a person, as a woman, as an artist. If any of that had been any different, I'd be a different person, and my art would probably be different. But the truth is I love driving a truck. I love that I'm looking at the Rocky Mountains off to my right. I'm in the foothills, so I actually have hills on my left as well. It's beautiful. I get to see birds. I've already seen 2 or 3 hawks this morning while I'm driving and talking to you guys, and I love driving a truck. I love the freedom. I love the scenery. I love the financial independence that it's giving me, and stability of having a steady paycheck. I love that once I got my OTR experience under my belt and I could find a local job, I love my schedule. I work Monday through Friday, home every night. I get to eat my food. I'm not eating at a truck stop. I get to sleep in a bed that's not on wheels. I have 2 days off a week in a row, Saturday and Sunday. So I get to see my friends. I get to have a social life. I get to go play in my studio consistently, regularly. I finally have found that balance. It's great. And I'm ecstatic about the work that's coming out of me right now, playing with these new paint pouring techniques that I took a class for recently. Thank you, Pam Fortner. And I'm also starting to play with alcohol inks, and life is good. Life is sweet, but it is not not without its sour moments, but those sour times, those times where we have creative U-turns, when we have dark nights of the soul, it's all part of the journey and the process. And ultimately, eventually, like Picasso and his paintings that were his diary, so to speak, that is where creativity, it feeds my soul, it soothes my soul, it's healing, it's what I live for. When I'm in my studio painting or taking a class and I'm connecting with other creatives, those are the sweetest, happiest moments of my life. That is my happy place. And so on a day like today, when it's International Soul Art Day, I am just so freaking happy to be alive. I'm so grateful that 16 years ago when I was having Dark Night of the Soul, because I wasn't honoring my creativity, I'm so grateful on days like today that I chose life. I'm so grateful for art therapy and the path that it put me on. Everything happens for a reason. Everything is happening for us, not to us, if we choose to look at it that way. So there you have it. This is the longest video I've recorded in a really long time, because there was so much that I wanted to share with you, with it being both International Soul Art Day and for me it tying in so perfectly with Chapter 9 and the Artist Way, especially when Julia talks about our creative U-turns and healing from those, which is, that's what this day for me represents. It's a day for us to come together and honor ourselves, honor our creative natures and our souls that want to express through us as us. I hope that whenever you watch this video, because truthfully I won't be able to post it until later tonight, and Soul Art Day will be nearly over, but so in the days, the weeks, the months, the years to pass, because this will be on YouTube, I invite you, please honor yourself, honor your creativity, do something, anything, to honor your creative spirit. And even if it's just go for a walk in nature and take in the beautiful scenery around you and snap some photos, do anything, create a beautiful meal, weed your garden, revel in the beauty of your flowers, like this tulip that was gifted to me yesterday. Alright, I'm starting to ramble now. I'm enjoying talking with you guys so much I don't want to end, but I should focus on driving. Alright, until next time, live creatively, and next week we'll be talking about Chapter 10, recovering a sense of self-protection. Alright, see you later guys.